Kick it off. Welcome. Thanks to everyone for joining the Arc-enabled Server monthly forum. It's December, so happy holidays for everyone that's celebrating, and thanks again for making the time to join during the holiday season. We're gonna go through a really packed agenda today. This is the last one for the month. We're gonna start off with some announcements and updates. Then I'm gonna have Megan share a really exciting opportunity to participate in shaping the Azure Arc Copilot. We're gonna have Lance from the Arc SQL Server team who's gonna do some really neat demos of backup point restore capabilities with Arc SQL Server. We're gonna have Ved who's going to showcase Run Command, including our public preview, which was just announced today. So it's literally hot off the press. And then we're going to have Prasid showcase some Windows Admin Center. And we'll wrap up with Jody, who's going to share with you a new opportunity around server configuration feedback. And we'll do a quick demo of some ESU enrollment through Azure Policy. All right, let's get after it. So quick updates from the Arc server side from our November agent release. You'll notice that the AZCM agent show now reports the ESU license status as well. You'll also note the CPU limit for extensions on Linux is up to 30%. Additionally, you'll note that the older extension manager and machine config agent logs are zipped, so we're reducing some of those disk space requirements that have come up and changed the names of some of these services to GC extension service and GC Arc service. So these are some of the more nitty-gritty pieces, and you can also set the agent mode before connecting to Azure. And finally, the agent is now going to be responding to IMDS requests even when the connection to Azure is temporarily unavailable. So a lot of subtle agent changes over this November release, really listening to a lot of the feedback around quality, around our extension service, around DSU operations, around disk space, etc. But the exciting news is we are announcing the public preview of Run Command on Arc-enabled servers today, and you have an awesome demo by Ved who's going to showcase that in action. With that, I'm now going to hand it over to Megan, who's going to talk to you a little bit about an Azure Arc Copilot survey opportunity. Take it away, Megan.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Arnav. So my name is Megan McCrory, and I'm a product manager here on the Arc platform team. And as most of you know, at the last Ignite, we introduced Azure Copilot, which is the AI assistant to help customers deploy, manage workloads on Azure. And with that, we're trying to understand from our customers from the Arc side on what kind of Copilot scenarios make sense to you. Where would you like us to go within our Copilot roadmap? And so we're starting out this effort. And so basically our call to action is if you're interested in kind of shaping what Copilot can help you do with regards to your Arc environment, servers, Kubernetes, and beyond, we really want to get your feedback. So we're trying to understand where we should go first with Copilot, just identifying what are all of the different use cases where we could help, and then trying to prioritize those. So we're really looking for feedback here in this area. We've created a survey here on the forum, so I'm going to go ahead and paste the survey link inside of the chat window. So if you are interested in helping shape what this might look like, please fill out the survey and we will be in touch in the early new year, so in January of 2024. And that's it. So this is really just if you're interested, please fill out the survey.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing, Megan. That's so exciting to hear about all of the Copilot opportunities with Azure Arc, especially around a lot of the security, the monitoring capabilities, and just thinking about Arc broadly across server, Kubernetes, and SQL Server as well. So it'll be great to have folks participate and really help shape that Copilot.
Exactly. Thanks so much, Arnav.
Awesome. Next, I'm going to hand it to Lance, who's going to share some updates from the SQL Server side of the house as well.
Awesome. Thanks, Arnav. Appreciate the invite to the call here, and it's good to be here with the community. We did have a busy November last month. We announced a lot of great features for Arc-enabled SQL servers at the Ignite and PASS summits that we had last month. And I'll be touching on 3 of those today. Let me actually put a link to our release notes. You're welcome to follow along with all the announcements and all of the doc links. Since we're not sending out the deck, it's probably the easiest way for you to get access to the doc links for everything that I'll talk about here today. So first thing that we'll talk about is being able to use the Azure portal to better manage, maintain, and secure your SQL servers that are enabled by Azure Arc. So first on the dock here will be backup and restore, and basically being able to configure that backup policy from within the Azure portal, as well as start a point-in-time restore from within the Azure portal as well. We also announced some high availability features, being able to see your availability group inventory and status again from the Azure portal, and to trigger a manual planned failover from within the Azure portal as well. And then SQL Server performance monitoring has been getting a lot of attention since our announcement last month, and I'll show a quick demo of that as well today. So, and just a quick note that all of these are public preview feature releases. Just a heads up to everyone. So Arnav, if you don't mind, I'm actually going to kick you off the share here. Awesome. And we'll get going here. So
all right, I'll stop sharing.
Select. See if that worked. Yes. Okay, sounds good. Let me know if you cannot see the screen. Let me just rearrange my windows here. So for the availability, so I'm going to actually start with our a demo video around high availability groups. So I actually ran out of time to set up my demo environment, but my colleague Dinakar recorded a great demo that I'll just kind of walk everyone through. And let me see, let me just kind of zoom here. I won't bother trying to get the computer sound to work. I feel like it doesn't work half the time. Let's see if we can get this working here. But basically what we have done here, let me just do a quick refresh on this page. I loaded it earlier this morning. All right, close that. Let's hit mute so I don't get distracted. Okay, perfect. So basically what we have done here is from within the SSMS portal, still buffering. So my colleague here, he set up kind of two clusters, one that's in a good state and one that's kind of in a failed state. And if you were to go into SSMS, for example, you would see availability group dashboard that looks a little something like this. You can see all the green check marks, everything's looking happy, everything's synchronizing. And he also set up an example where things aren't in a good state. So we're seeing lots of warnings. The synchronization isn't happening across the AGs. And what we have done is we've effectively kind of replicated this dashboard that you see in SSMS, and that's now available in the portal if you have availability group inventory. So right from within the Azure portal, let me see if I can pause it right here. There's a new blade for availability groups on your Arc-enabled SQL Server resources. And here you can see all of the availability groups that your SQL Server is a part of. And you can click into any of these availability groups and kind of see that same dashboard. You'll kind of see the similarities, kind of inspired from SSMS. We kind of largely replicated the same dashboard into the Azure portal. So here's the example of the unhealthy AG, and here's the example of the healthy AG. So the big advantage here for customers is rather than having to RDP or connect into each of their individual Arc or SQL servers, they can just use Azure Arc as kind of the single control plane, the single visibility point to get visibility into their AG inventory. And then I don't think this demo video shows it, but there is the ability to trigger a failover, like a planned failover right from within the Azure portal. So again, you're not having to log into SSMS, you're not having to RDP into the SQL Server to trigger that failover. You can just do it again right from within the Azure portal. So very exciting. We'll definitely, if you do, and by the way, for any of these features, if you do have any feedback for us PMs or our engineering organization, go ahead and click that feedback button. Let us know what's working well for you. Let us know what you'd like to see next when it comes to any of these features. So that's availability group inventory. So the next thing that I'm actually going to jump into is I'm actually just going to jump straight into the Azure portal, and let's talk about backups for Arc-enabled SQL servers. So again, I'm still on a Arc-enabled SQL server. There's a new backups blade here, and effectively what we're doing here is we now have the ability to configure the backup policy on the Arc-enabled SQL server. So you can basically set a backup policy that gets applied to all of the databases that are on the SQL Server instance. So you can basically set how many retention days you want to set. You can designate how often you want full backups to be taken. I think by default, we're doing every week. You can do a differential backup every 12 or 24 hours, and then you can set your transaction log backup in different 5-minute increments. And then if you are, I will note that it is only supported in full recovery mode right now. If you do have a need for simple recovery mode, again, please hit that feedback button and let us know. And then let's see, why aren't these showing? Should have the option to trigger the point in time restore. Okay, it's not showing as available right now. Downside to doing a live demo, but effectively what happens when you do have a backup that is available, there's an option here to start the point in time restore process. And it just takes you to another screen that shows you, that basically lets you pick the date and time that you want to trigger the backup, and it will automatically trigger that backup on the database, the restore of that database to a new database. And one thing that I'll note here is we aren't doing backups to the cloud. We're basically just kind of leveraging the existing policy that's on the machine. Just the big benefit here is you can start to manage and configure that policy and trigger the point in time restore from within the Azure portal. So very cool feature. Again, just starting to bring some of that visibility into the single Azure control plane. And then the last thing that I'll show here is the SQL Performance Dashboard. So again, new blade on an Arc-enabled SQL Server resource. And so the really cool thing about this one is there's actually not a whole lot that customers need to do to configure the performance monitoring dashboard to work. As long as it's an enterprise or standard edition and it's running the latest version of the extension, and you know, a small host of other kind of, like right now we don't support FCI clusters right now, but as long as you kind of meet the prereqs for the SQL Server collection, it's actually automatic. Customers don't really need to configure anything, and they come to the Azure portal and they'll automatically get a dashboard that's already populated for them. You can pick different time ranges here, so we can look at the last 6 hours as kind of a test box, so not a whole lot interesting is happening on it. But yeah, you can see we have high-level metrics like memory, CPU, and storage utilization. You can see the data storage IOPS for both logs and storage. You can see your storage and logs utilization. You can see how many transactions are going on. And then you can always go up here and add a new chart to the dashboard. And here you can kind of see the different sets of metrics that we're collecting. So we could add a chart here for active sessions, for example, and it just starts to show up here at the bottom of this chart. Or we know that you know, performance counters are obviously very popular when it comes to SQL Server, and we're collecting about 60 or so different performance counters that you can just easily add to your dashboard here, and this dashboard will persist kind of session to session for your SQL Server. So this is a great tool to, you know, provide customers with a visibility right from within the Azure portal of how their Arc-enabled SQL Server is performing. You know, this can work in conjunction or with your current monitoring tools, or perhaps a replacement if you find that the performance dashboard is suiting the needs. And again, would definitely love the feedback. We are in kind of the public preview process, so now's a great opportunity to provide feedback on any of these features, and definitely check out the documentation. I'll post a link especially for the SQL Server performance dashboard, to kind of talk about what are all the metrics that we're collecting and how frequently and things like that. So so yeah, thanks again for inviting me, Arnav. I'll stop sharing so you can take over again. And I see there's a couple questions in the chat, and I'll kind of address those as we go along.
Awesome. Thanks so much for sharing, Lance. That was great to see availability in action or inaction in some cases, but also the performance dashboard. So really neat capabilities. And I know the chat's just full of questions. So I think folks are really eager to try out those performance dashboards and get those configured. Awesome. Speaking of things to try out, we have Run Command that's now public preview available for you all to try out. So I'm excited to have Vade come up and share a demo of Run Command live. Right, Vade? Take it away.
Hi, Vade. I'm going to do a little demo of Run Command. So like Arnav said earlier, we started public preview. So Run Command is a great way to like diagnose or troubleshoot your computer and run all sorts of scripts. So I guess a way to look at Run Command would be it's a good replacement for custom script extension. It lets you run multiple scripts. You run up to 15 at once. And so it supports a lot of fun stuff. Like you can upload scripts to a blob and it'll download the script and run it for you. And so I'll show you, we also have a long running scripts, and you can set timeouts for these scripts too. So like the first example, let's just start with something easy. So we have, so we support both AZCLI and PowerShell commandlets. And so we'll be using a PowerShell commandlet to run command. So you just give it a machine name, resource group. Also, the latest agent, so from agent 1.33 onwards, run command support comes out of the box. So all you need to do is make sure you have the latest version of the agent, and you can just start running scripts using run command. And so you can, I have this PowerShell commandlet, and then you can just add a source script and then write host. And what it'll do is just start, it'll download the script onto your machine and then start running it. And so you can kind of see it. When you do get, it'll say succeeded, how long it took. So when it ended, when it started, and output. So this is nice. So it'll, the run command handler will split your output and error streams into the two different ones. So you can see if it errors out of one point error out on what output it printed out. And so you can also do others. So let me get, so I could do the same thing, but let's say I want to save this output somewhere. So like I'm setting a start time and end time here because I'm going to get a SAS token. So I can use the new easy storage blob SAS token command and get a URL. It's not working. Okay, so let's try something else. We could also use the portal and go to the containers and just copy a SAS token URL. And then I could run the same script, but this time I can append the dash output blob URI. And so you can do this and add. So run command will create new append blobs for you. So I could just add like output.txt and create one. And if I get the status of it, should be updating soon. Yep, it's back in creating. Takes a second. And then so while we're waiting for that to complete, if you go to the container, click. Might have copied the wrong link. Hold on. I think I copied the wrong SAS token. So let me copy this one. You can create up to 15 at a time. So I can just create 2. Still creating. Yeah, and also, so this supports RBAC access. So we can select who can run scripts and who can't run scripts. And like extensions, you can block certain, so extensions including run command. So if you can choose, if you just don't want to allow run command to be installed on your machines. Still running. So I guess while this is running, we can try something else. You can also pull scripts. So let's see, I have this script here. Let's try this one. So we have a write host run command demo, and you can do the same thing where you can just generate a SAS token, copy this. do new. And since instead of source script, I would use source script URI. Then I could just paste it in here. It'll start running. Oh, I know what I missed. So when you are creating output blobs, you have to make sure that it has permission to add, create, and write. Otherwise, it won't be able to create a blob, which is why it didn't work. So let's go back here. So yeah, it did run command demo, and I think if we go to the container now, it should have output. Yeah. Unfortunate part is you can't look at append blobs in the portal, so you have to download them. And I go here. I can pull this in, and it all downloads. This is good. So you can run command only supports up to 4 kilobytes of outputs at once. So if you were to do a get, you would only see 4 kilobytes of data, which sometimes isn't enough for long running scripts. So you can stream it to the blobs. It'll keep running. There is no time limit on run command, so you could have it running for days, years, decades. So it could be like a cron job. You just sleep for like 4 hours, but you don't want to program a cron job. You could do something similar to that. Then I think this one, we'll run it again. And this one is the example of, this one is the example of pulling the script from an output blob or from a regular blob that's stored in a storage container. So if I do get, it's running. It says what script it's running currently. Yeah, and then it'll run command demo. You can see when it started running, when it completed. So if you were to, for example, if there was an error, what would that look like? So we could do. So I guess while that's running, I can talk about a few other stuff we support. So you can do a lot of other stuff, which I will go over, which might take a while, but you can do, we support run as users and passwords. So you could have, let's say, a local user that you need to run that has less privileges. So when run command runs scripts, it runs it under admin, which one might not want. So you can support a run as user and password, and it'll run it as that user. You can also timeout scripts. So if you expect something to finish in like 10 minutes, but it doesn't happen, you can set a 10-minute timeout on it. What else? You can also, so for long running scripts, we support something called an async execution flag. When you enable this, ARM doesn't time out your script. So this is good for when you have scripts running for days or years. And you can, for example, like add an output blob, and then it'll just keep streaming data. It also support it for error blobs, and I'll show you what the error looks like. So this is the error. It shows you. It shows up in a different part of the instance view. So this is the exit code. This is the output, which is empty. So I would have tried like write host hello world and then write host syntax error, and it would have shown the hello world part here and then the error here. And so because this is like a PowerShell commandlet, you can do a lot of other stuff. Anyway, yeah, I think that's all I had. So I think it's easier if you use the new Easy Storage Blob token for creating blobs, but for some reason it doesn't work right now. I think I set it up wrong, but this is easier. And then you can also, because it supports RBAC, you can choose who can access what. And you can also have a ton of scripts set up. So I saw somewhere that someone wanted to restart their machines, and the solution that was proposed was you download custom script extension and you run a script. This is a lot better to do that. And just general diagnosability. I think in the link Arnav posted, there also talks about like creating new firewall rules for ESUs. So you could combine a lot of these features and make them work. Yeah, so this is
Awesome. And Vade, where can folks go to learn more?
There's a link posted in the chat. I will. But if you go to the portal and I can find my machine, there's a run command blade now, which you can access. And if you click on run command, it'll take you to the same link. And it talks about, yeah, so you can add endpoint accesses, you can update scripts, you can add params. So if you can also add protected parameters. So if you don't want to type your passwords in, you can just do that and it'll encrypt all your parameters. Yeah, so run as user password. You can obviously delete run commands, and we allow up to 50 run commands at a time. And so you could have 15 run commands that take like days or years to run and won't cause any issues. Obviously, other than the processing power it will eat, but that's pretty much it.
Awesome. Thanks so much for sharing. And I know it's always really difficult to script on demand, especially. So it was great to see just one sample use case, but there's so many different scripting and automation capabilities and scenarios this lights up for customers. So this is just sort of one example, but great to see. Awesome. Thanks so much, Ben. Next, we're going to keep the demos going, and you just saw some scripting and automation. Now we're going to switch to more of a graphical experience from server management perspective, and we're going to bring in the Windows Admin Center team. So I have Prasid here on the call, who's going to share WAC capabilities with Azure Arc and Stack. Awesome, Prasid. Feel free to take it away.
Yeah. Hey, good morning, good evening, folks. My name is Prasid. I am a PM on the Windows Admin Center team. I'm about to show you a capability that's actually been public free preview for a little bit of time now. But going to give a little bit of demo on what it looks like, the power it has, and what you can do with it. I'll start off with just a couple of slides, and then I'll move over to showing the demo that people actually care about. So let's talk about how customers do server management today, and let me know, shout out if you can't see my screen. Let's talk about how customers do server management today, right? So if you have an Arc-enabled server right now, you end up going to the Azure portal for performing all of your Azure-related things, right? Things like Azure Monitor, Microsoft Defender for Cloud, Policy, Run command, right? You end up going to the Azure portal to perform all of your at-scale Azure portal management, monitoring, all of that. And then if there's ever an issue, let's say you're using Azure Monitor and Azure Monitor says, hey, there's something up with your volume, there's something up with your server, we're seeing high CPU usage, whatever it might be, and you need to actually troubleshoot why something has gone wrong, you end up going to some on-premises tool to figure out what's wrong. Things like PowerShell. If you're used to Windows Admin Center on-premises, you're used to Windows Admin Center on-prem, RDP, System Center, whatever it might be, you would end up going on premises to actually finding out what's wrong. And a big problem and issue with using an on-premises tool for managing your server is that you need to establish line of sight in some way or form, right? To use the Azure portal, you would just go to your browser, open portal.azure.com, and you'd be able to go to the Azure portal to monitor, get alerts, do all the things you do with Azure. But the minute you actually need to figure out and solve a problem that is actually on your server, you end up going on premises. So you need line of sight, right? You actually need to go set up a firewall rule, set up a VPN, do something to actually access your servers. And I'll tell you that's true even within Microsoft. If I want to access my server, I need to go connect to some VPN to actually access the server I have. And setting all of this up can be painful, right? The whole premise, the whole goal, the whole value of Arc is that you can use Azure at scale to manage your servers without having to go on-prem to actually go into the nitty-gritty. So the whole goal of Windows Admin Center and Azure is to solve this problem. It's to make it such that you can actually do all of the on-premises tasks, things like firewall management, certificate management, performance monitoring. Well, I guess you can use Azure Monitor for that. But all of the on-prem tools that you would need when you, for example, RDP into a server, and make it all natively available in Azure without having to RDP, without having to set up line of sight, without having to do all of those things to actually get access to your server itself. And so a huge block of text here. I'll move on to the demo here. But essentially, the whole premise of Windows Admin Center is to make all of the seamless and granular management of your servers, so whether Arc-enabled servers or Azure Stack HCI clusters, available natively in the Azure portal securely. So without having to set up a VPN, get a public IP address for your servers, or set up any sort of inbound connectivity to your servers. You don't have to set up things like WinRM or open up the RDP port. It's a familiar interface for folks that have been using Windows Admin Center. Windows Admin Center has been a GA product for about 5 years now. It's the same UI of Windows Admin Center. It's the same familiar tool set. It's actually the exact same code that we're enlightening, whether you're using Windows Admin Center on-prem or in Azure. And a big thing is it's passwordless management, right? When you open the Azure portal, when you open portal.azure.com, you log in with your Azure AD identities, your Microsoft Entra identities. I have prasid.arora@microsoft.com, and that's how I log into the Azure portal. Yet, when you do things like PowerShell RDP, you actually need something like a local admin or a domain admin or NTLM Kerberos. You need some of those things to actually log into your servers to get access to your server. A huge win and a huge benefit of Windows Admin Center is we adopt the Microsoft Entra identities when logging into your server. So regardless of whether or not your server is connected to a domain, whether it's using a work group, whether it's connected to Azure AD, it doesn't matter. Windows Admin Center will always use your Microsoft Entra identities to actually log you into your servers. So in my case, it'll log me in as prasid.arora@microsoft.com. Even though my server itself has not been connected to Azure and understands that identity. All of this, of course, controlled through Azure RBAC roles, as most folks are already familiar with. All right, let's take a look at what this looks like. So I'll hop over to the Azure portal here. Here I have just an Azure Arc-enabled server. It's running Windows Server 2022 Data Center. It could be running anything from Windows Server 2016 and up. So sorry for the folks that have been using Windows Server 2012 for ESUs. It's not available for 2012. But if you're running Windows Server 2012 and up, 2016 and up, you'll be able to use Windows Admin Center. And soon, actually, if you're using Arc-enabled server on your client machines, you'll actually be able to use Windows Admin Center too. Not yet, but pretty soon. On the left here, there's this Windows Admin Center Blade. It's modeled as a VM extension for folks that are familiar with VM extensions. Things like Azure Monitor and Defender for Cloud also install as VM extensions. You go through a one-time install process, which I've skipped for this demo here, but there's a little install button that would usually show up here. You click install, it installs in about 5 or so minutes. And then you end up on this connect screen. And so if I hit connect here, Windows Admin Center will load. And so what you'll see is, especially if you've used the same on-prem tool, Windows Admin Center, you'll see that the exact same UX, the exact same code is actually what gets loaded in the Azure portal. And you get all of the same experiences we've built for Windows Admin Center over the last 5 years. Over the last many, many years, there's been a very large dev team that's focused on building new experiences for Windows Admin Center to make your server management easy. And all of those are available here in the Azure portal. And I'll emphasize 2 points here, right? First, you didn't see me enter any credentials. I had the right Azure RBAC role. There's a role called Windows Admin Center Administrator Login. I was part of that role. My identity, my AAD or Microsoft Entra identity was part of that role. And so I was able to log in without having to enter any credentials. So that's part one. And part two is I actually have no line of sight to the server. I actually don't even think the server has a public IP address. I'm just able to open all of the tools that would generally require line of sight here in the Azure portal. So whether it's because I have an expired certificate and I need to quickly go and renew one of my certificates, or, Azure Monitor told me that there is high performance something in my server and I need to go look at Performance Monitor in better detail to figure out why something went wrong. Or even like I need to run native PowerShell open directly in RDP session, right? When maybe you're running a custom application and you need to figure out what's wrong with that custom application, you can actually just open remote desktop all here within the Azure portal, figure out what's wrong, fix it, and get on with your days. So that's Windows Admin Center. Feel free to email me in the PowerPoint here. I have docs. So Windows Admin Center, as I mentioned, it's available for Arc-enabled servers, Azure Stack HCI clusters, and for folks that are running native Azure VMs, it's been available on Azure IaaS VMs for quite a while too. So feel free to try it out. If you have any questions, run into any issues, honestly, feel free to just directly email me. I'm happy to chat with folks. That's all.
Awesome. Thanks so much for sharing, Prasid, and great to see WAC in action for the Arc-enabled servers and Stack HCI, all from Azure portal. It's really neat to see that, especially with the passwordless capability. It's so easy to configure and get started, and really interesting. Kind of, if you think about that, plus what Vet shared with Run Command, all of these server management capabilities coming together. Speaking of server management and server OS management, I want to share with you another opportunity for some feedback. So I'll go ahead and share this feedback form and have Jody share with you a little bit more about this.
Yeah, hey folks, thanks Arnav. See some familiar faces in the tabs from people that I got to meet at Ignite and some folks from the DSC community call, so really excited to be here. One of the things that we're doing, well, I'll start with an introduction. So my name's Jody and I work on the product team for the machine configuration service. So for those of you who aren't using it yet, machine configuration lets you natively configure OS, app, or workload level settings across your Arc-enabled server environment, but then also across your Azure virtual machines. So we've had a lot of really exciting releases in the last year, specifically some opportunities sort of in the open source world as well. So we have our PowerShell tooling module that recently went open source. So I'll include the link to that in the chat as well. But one of the things that we're really focusing on is how we can make, the management experience of your operating systems more deeply integrated within your overall governance strategy across your broad and diverse Azure ecosystem. So we're really looking for your feedback here to one, get some names for folks who'd be interested in doing more longer form feedback sessions, and then also get your feedback on what we should be prioritizing on our roadmap, and if there are areas that you feel like we should have sort of more coverage on in terms of your operating system management strategies. So with that, I'll put the link to our newly open source repo in the chat, as well as the link to this survey. And yeah, look forward to getting in touch. Thanks, Arnav.
Awesome. Thanks so much for sharing, Jody. Sounds like a really, really exciting opportunity for folks to get involved with some of the open source work and some of the server OS management work as well. And so with this and Copilot, I know all of the folks that are interested in getting involved with our private previews and really, really helping shape a lot of the new opportunities and capabilities are going to be super excited. Alrighty. With that, I'm going to do a quick demo to wrap up on Azure policy for ESU enrollment. And as you know, today's not just any regular Tuesday. I believe it's a patch Tuesday, and we do have an ESU update that went live today. For those of you who want a little bit of a holiday scare, Windows Server 2012 is end of support. So unless you are enrolled in ESUs, you are not getting your security patches. So if you're wondering, okay, how do I enroll at scale? We're excited to share some at-scale policies, Azure policies that you can use to deliver those ESU patches and enroll your servers at scale. And so here I'm sharing with you a preview, which is to enable ESU licenses to keep Windows Server 2012 protected. And so what this is going to do is this Azure policy definition allows you to actually go ahead in our parameters. We're actually able to provide an ESU licensed resource ID. And what this is going to do is it's going to remediate and link a bunch of servers to that ESU license at scale. So we got feedback that you can use those APIs as well. You can go through portal point and click, but for some of those at scale environments where you want to enroll your entire fleet of servers, policy really serves that. So we're excited to share with you that policy. And in addition, another policy which is actually around denying ESU license creation or modification. So we know there's a lot of RBAC and a lot of different roles for the Arc server estate for our customers. And so this allows you to really put that granularity in terms of blocking modification of ESU licensing creation or modification. It's the holiday season. Folks might be oof, you want to make sure that your ESU licensing and linking doesn't get modified in adverse ways during this time. So we're excited to share both of those, and they are documented within our ESU documentation around how to deliver ESU patches. You'll see that in our at scale for our deliver ESU documentation. Right here, our Azure policies are documented there, and we'll throw those in the chat as well. So that was a really quick demo on that. With that, I wanted to share that our next call is going to be at the start of the year. So we're going to kick off what's all of the exciting updates of what's coming out with Azure Arc across the board. And really thank you to everyone for attending the call today. Hope it was exciting. We know we packed in a lot of different demos, a lot of different capabilities there.